Good afternoon, everybody. This is Joy Lacheray, and I am waiting for Christopher Martin to come online. Um, we've been having a little problem with our sound and lighting, and I see Christopher popping in now.
Hi there. Sorry about
Hi,
the delay.
Christopher.
I went and bought a brand new pair of buds that apparently don't have a working microphone either, despite that being what I bought them for. So
Can you do it on your phone?
I'm having to do it on the phone.
You what? You are?
Yeah.
Are you not able to turn up your volume?
According to this, it's like bouncing off the top of the gain register, actually.
Wow. Okay. Well, with all of that being said, I do want to give a shout out to my sponsor, Luscious Moss Studio. He is owned and operated by Chad Quist out of Edgewood, Washington. And he has a very creative and collaborative environment set up for specifically drummers and guitarists. However, he does do recordings. He's done mine. I just think I lost Christopher. But anyway, if you have any needs of production or recording, do contact Chad. You can find him on Facebook. Uh, and you can find him on Facebook under Luscious Moss Studio or Chad Chris. So, with that being said, let's get back to Christopher. All right.
I was trying to wring everything I could out of the microphone in the settings, and it excused me.
Okay. Well, I don't know how well you can hear us, but hopefully you'll be able to turn up your volume out there. Let me know. There's a chat line here. Please identify yourself. So, to begin with, I'd like to know your background, Christopher. It looks like you're a rocker of some sort. The rock music? Yeah.
Yeah, mostly. I actually been playing mostly, I guess you'd term it hard rock or classic rock for a long, long time. I started as a teenager in the '80s, picked up guitar around then. I'd already been steeped in pretty much everything from '70s, particularly rock. My older brother is just absolutely a huge music guy, and so when he was a teenager and I was his annoying kid brother, he'd be bringing home Aerosmith and Queen and anything Joe Walsh was doing with anybody, and just that whole '70s soundtrack, whether it was soft rock or Ted Nugent or AC/DC or whatever, Queen, a lot of Queen. Um, it was going, he was bringing it home and playing it, and I was always bugging him, so I was getting it firsthand. And I still actually haven't found anything that I like more, if I'm honest, because that seemed like it was a really good time where the lessons of the '50s of the '60s, the first couple of decades of rock, had evolved, and recording technology was getting to that point. I mean, even during that time is that Sound City movie that Dave Grohl made was about a recording console from that period where the consoles even just sounded so good. And I think it had a huge effect on me, and also the just that whole thing where you really wanted to buy the album as opposed to just hey, they're dropping a single.
Yeah.
No, they drop a single and then you'd go and buy the album because the single was, getting to do a sample as you're walking through Costco kind of thing.
Yeah. So what was the first thing that you did? Was it guitar or did you have another instrument you started with?
I started on brass, trumpet, and
Ah,
baritone as in like age 8, and I liked it fine, but you know, I'd I'd come home and practice my trumpet stuff, and there's my brother's album collection in the corner, and I wasn't doing that. I wanted to do that. Um, and then finally, I always thought this was a ploy that as a teenager, after my mom and dad split up when I was like 10, 11 years old, um, my mom was working a lot, and this was before cell phones, kids.
okay.
Uh,
Yeah. Some of
Uh,
us remember that.
yeah, well, it was the whole thing where mom had no idea where I was a lot of the time, because I was a typically airheaded teenager, and it wasn't necessarily I was doing anything nefarious. It wasn't not necessarily that, but it was that I was not great at always remembering to call in at every step of everywhere I was. So just for her to kind of know where I was sometimes, she at one particular point of a tax return or something, got me a little starter PV guitar kit when I was like
How old were you?
14,
How old are you about?
14, 15.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Teenage.
And for the first year, I basically didn't do much more than scare the cat.
Yeah.
Uh, it was the same thing when you're particularly in rock circles. I don't know if this is true all over, but in the '80s in particular, there was a very gunslinger guitarist mentality kind of left over from everybody wishing they were Eddie Van Halen, and that's after a decade of everybody wishing they were Jimmy Page and Eric Clapton and Joe Perry and Ted Nugent and whomever else.
Right.
And as a result of all of that, I go to learn guitar in 1985, 86, and you learn riffs.
Yeah.
Like, I probably the third riff I knew was the riff to Crazy Train. I didn't know how to play the song for like 8 more years, but I could play the intro to everything, by the end of my first year of guitar. But I got with a really excellent guitar teacher after about a year named Stan Hirsch that was just, he was perfect in that he was actually a perfect age. He was an age I envied because he had been in his late teens kind of when it all hit, when Hendrix hit, when Cream and all of the bands that blew all of my band's minds, so to speak.
Yeah.
The firmament of the rock that I wanted to do so much, because as I was really heavily into Aerosmith, and every interview I read with Aerosmith, well, they were very much into Deep Purple and Led Zeppelin, and they all worshipped Jeff Beck and Eric Clapton. So I and my brother had all that stuff coming home too. So, one leads to 5 others, but yeah. So as a kid, I was always, even as a teenager, this guitar teacher was able to go, well, he got me on some fundamentals and some scales and some basic music theory, but he's like, you were always bringing. These are called cassettes, kids. Your grandparents will explain them to you. But I'd bring him a cassette of Pink Floyd or whatever, and he would be able to go, well, this is interesting that you bring this, because this uses the chords that I showed you 2 lessons ago, and this uses that scale that we were working with last week, and he was really good at connecting all these dots to where it wasn't just, oh, here's homework I have to do. No, seriously, I showed you this, and this is it in practical usage, and and slowly, some people have a light bulb above their head. In my case, a candle snuffs out above my head. I'm like, oh, and the pieces started melding together, and so by 16, 17 years old, I was dragging my poor little lunchbox sized amp and my poor guitar to the kegger parties and everything else, and mostly being terrified of the shredder guitarist.
Yeah. Okay, what's the difference between you and a shredder guitarist?
They were actually very commonplace in the 80s, and I took a little from that type of playing, but they were the what I call the post Van Halen players. Strangely enough, Eddie Van Halen really didn't want to be blamed for them. But for like a lot of the people who watched particularly out of MTV in the 80s or Headbangers Ball in particular. The people who had, were doing all the tapping on the fingerboard and all of that. Most of them sounded really horrible. They there was an overall ignorance, and I raised my hand. I was part of it. That Eddie, well, he just must have had cooler stuff. He must have had higher output guitars, and he must have. But well, see, Eddie Van Halen was known that he engineered most of his own stuff. And he, right out in interviews, said, yeah, I took this pickup from this old Gibson and I stuffed it into this body that I bought at this store, and I put a neck on it, and I recorded the first Van Halen album on it. That he was right up front with it. He said he didn't know what the hell he was doing and just sort of did it. We were all convinced he was lying. No. He had super trick, awesome pickups that had plutonium power or something. And so if in the 80s, and I still have some old guitar magazines, you see all these guitars with 500 switches on the front of them. and all these insane pickups that had just ridiculous power, but the more power they have, the less really good sound they tend to have. Which is why an awful lot of the shredder guitars, and they could play so fast, and they could do all this, but they were outfitting themselves with stuff that sounded really awful for the most part.
No.
Which is why that particular trend, it went for most of the 80s, but then I always say Guns N' Roses Guns N' Roses timing was excellent. I know I'm rambling, but when Guns N' Roses showed up, and they were not shredders. Matter of fact, they were pretty much really obvious 5-star alcoholics, drug addicts, and the rest. But
they made good music.
But they were just playing heavy, riff-based, storytelling rock music again. They weren't trying to be faster than Band X or Band Z. They were coming out at the same time that, Winger would put out a ballad that would have, 50 different techniques in the guitar solo. But Slash would put out a guitar solo that a non-musician might be humming in the shower later. And that's kind of when you win. Yeah. And along the same time that Guns N' Roses came out, a lot of bands like Aerosmith got back together and sobered up. Robert Plant put out some great solo albums, and just sort of this less hyper rock renaissance started happening. The Black Crowes come out, and here's this revisitation of 1974 rock music in the middle of it. And the shredder thing just didn't sound as good. Okay, well, you played 512 notes in 2 seconds, but
yeah.
So what?
Yeah.
And that was a lesson I actually took out of even in the 80s, where I'd be sitting at a kegger party, and all the shredders would be in some demonic speed race in the corner, playing hyper super classical, playing faster than I could think through it, to where I was like, I don't even know if I have those notes on my guitar, man. I don't know. I think I'm playing an entirely different instrument over here. A couple of these guys are still my friends today. But I'd watch it, and there was some jealousy, but there was also that it just wasn't all that melodic, and there wasn't anything to hold on to. There wasn't that I don't know, that simple chorus to sing along to, that element of that commonality, maybe that blue collar quality, what have you. And I'd start playing some really greasy hard rock riff like Adam's Apple from Aerosmith, and half the people at the party would be over in my corner going, dude, I remember that song. And I'd just like, why is anybody over here? But I figured it out. And I still, once in a while, I still can play. I can jack up the speed and I can do all that stuff, but I don't. It hasn't been a priority with me for a very, very long time. And my guitar teacher helped steer me away from it. And I was just really attentive to music trends and kind of why they happened.
All right.
Because Guns N' Roses led to the grunge in a very real way.
I want to interrupt you for just a minute here. We have messages coming through because we're live.
I can't see this.
I don't know who you are out there, but if you would like to put your name on those comments so we know, we can greet you properly. But he says, or he or she said, "Hi, Chris, hell of a player." So I don't know if that's the same person or I don't know who they didn't put their name on.
Whoever you are, thank you, and your dollar will be in the mail after the interview. Thanks a lot. I actually get a lot of compliments that I still don't know how to respond to.
Wait, it's Donnie Bowles.
Oh, hey, Donnie. Donnie, actually, the last gig I played, I was on stage with Donnie out at the Red Dog. And Donnie's a hell of a player,
I know
too.
who that is.
He is super good. And just one of the nicest guys out there, too. He definitely would be worth one of these. But
I've already had him.
Oh, I missed that one. But
you can always find it if you go to YouTube. Just
Donnie
Bowles and it should come up.
But he's another gear nerd like me. So we probably could do one of these just on a guitar and destroy your ratings forever.
So when given us we're getting a little bit of waiting here. Oh, there you are. You're back. I don't know if that was you or me. And then somebody says, it might be Donnie, we have no life.
True. There's unfortunately a lot of musicians prove this isn't true. There's always the joke of get your kids into musical gear and they'll never be able to afford drugs. Sadly, we've seen that's not true, but
well, it is to me.
Yeah, true. But I tell you what, right now, I don't know. Like nowadays, you can kind of forget vintage gear unless you win a lottery. Because I remember, when you hear about a lot of our heroes, the Aerosmiths and the Led Zeppelins, and you hear Jimmy Page or Joe Perry or somebody talking about their gear, and they have, which 1959 Les Paul do I want to use on this album, or which pre-CBS Fender or whatever. I mean, I know Joe Perry has Fender Twin, literally number 7, not 507, not 50,007, just number 7. And it's just like, that's kind of a first world problem, Joe. But when you think about that stuff and you just hear that in kind of during our lifetime in the last 40, 50 years, that stuff went from being old gear to being suburban house in value.
I hear you. I got another person online with us that says, hello, Joy and Christopher. A.K. Wookie?
Yes, I'm known as the guitar Wookie in
Andrea Hollister.
Oh, Andrea, she is a dear person. I miss her terribly. A lot of the times she and Lynn Sorensen and her lot are usually playing further north than I'm haunting, and I miss them because they used to come down and play Draft Choice and whatnot. Similar times I was around there, and that was always a magnificent time. I miss those guys. Hello, Andrea. I hope you are very, very well, you beautiful person.
Hey, Andrea, check your messenger. I left you a message. In a moment of craziness, Lynn was playing the fiddle last night, and I ended up saying, after he did such a good job, Lynn, will you marry me? Oh, God, I'm never going to live that down.
Well, I mean, depends on how well you and Andrea get along, I guess. These things probably have to start there.
She said, miss you and hope to see you soon.
But actually, Lynn, I always loved any time I got to play with Lynn. We would babble shamelessly about all this same stuff.
Yeah.
The whole time we weren't playing too. So, and I remember one time when he was hosting a jam at Dave's before COVID.
I remember that in Milton.
Yeah, and Jeff Mills was drumming. And Jeff had an immediate ear for me goofing off with anything when I plugged in my guitar. And I am the worst doodler on earth. I plug in a guitar, and once I'm sure I'm tuned, I don't even know I'm doing it. Some riff I learned in 1992 starts coming out of my hand. And Jeff heard me start playing Satisfaction Guaranteed by The Firm. And of course, Lynn has history with Paul Rogers.
Yes.
Who played with him. And Jeff's like, do you know it? Do you know the song? I'm like, yeah, recently, I think. I've never gotten a performance like, he hasn't done it in years. Let's spring it on him. These are the friends I love to have.
Yeah, absolutely. You musicians they're different. I mean, there are some that are not very nice sometimes. I don't know, maybe they're up too late the night before. And then there are the gems that are always just, right there in the zone.
Well, it's a combination of a little, not so little, bit of sadism. Because every time I've gone and seen when Lynn and Manny and Susan are doing anything, I'll just go to see them. Yeah, like 30 seconds. Wookie, get up here.
I've never seen you play. I know. I'm curious.
It's he doesn't let me play. He makes me sing in those situations, and he knows I'm a guitar nerd, and I like to hide behind the guitar when I'm singing, right. And he doesn't let me.
Absolutely. When did you do your first gig? Before we go on, I want to apologize to the people out there. I don't know how you're seeing me, but I had to switch computers real fast because my regular computer with a good camera decided to take a break and it won't turn on. So next week I'll have the right camera. So hopefully you can see us. And can you answer that question, Christopher?
You're doing way better than me. I'm trying to not just let my phone drift out of, the whole time. But because my laptop's microphone was even worse than this. But
guess what? I can hear you great.
Okay, good.
Whoever said I look good.
You look magnificent. But the first gig, oh Lord, that would have been hanging out. Well, that's so hard. There was a mess of kegger parties with bands that were like three guys who we learned 3 songs and went and played somebody's living room for 3 beers. Dating. Then that would have been mid 80s. Yeah, well, back then, you could have offered to pay us in beer or weed, and we would have offered also to clean up afterward. But some of the first shows I can legally claim, I sent you a video of the Mad Canvas, a song called Quadrophile.
I hope I put that on there.
That was a band that a friend of mine, the other guitarist, his name was Mike Hollenbeck. He recruited me. Played guitar and various silly things with me all through high school. He was magnificent, but he was very much a Frank Zappa type of player. He played for his own amusement, and he liked having me around because I'd drag him into sort of accessible music. And because he just liked to make really weird dissonant, and he was brilliant. He was absolutely like 200 IQ, brilliant. But he occasionally had to be reminded, if you want to get invited back, you have to entertain people. So showing that you can play a diminished, augmented, add to 13, apocalyptic, bunny rabbit, whatever chord is great, and it's amazing. And I'm sure that some music volume somewhere will put your name in infamy, but somebody has to listen to it, man. And we're trying to get them to want to listen more than once.
Right.
And that's sort of where I came in. He was the absolute brilliant, out of left field, always had a weird idea to throw into a song, always had something that nobody else would think of. And I was the one who'd go, hey, that's brilliant. Hey, that's amazing. Hey, or there's a reason nobody's thought of that, Mike. It sounds terrifying. But he would be, he drugged me into the band Mad Canvas. We had a singer who really wanted to be some strange combination of Michael Stipe and David Bowie. But the best thing we got out of that was the bass player / violinist, who his name is Alessandro, who would go with me, and the drummer, whose name was Chris Roberts, and that was from 1992. I turned 21 that year, and we would form Void Cathedral the following year out of the ashes of Mad Canvas. And that band lasted until 1999, which
Wow.
I know. I think I sent you one or more videos from that. Yeah. And we were accidentally like the goth metal band of Albuquerque for 5 years. We didn't even know we were, but we were. It's because we were really dark and we were overly dramatic, and apparently that was all we needed. And we saw there was a little magazine or a free paper called The Weekly Alibi. It's like The Stranger here, and in Albuquerque, and we saw ourselves get like a 1-paragraph blurb somewhere as, and Albuquerque's goth metal stalwarts Void Cathedral will be appearing at Wiley's. Be kind, rewind. What was that? And it was just done. We were what we were, and but we wrote some amazing music, and it's still the sort of thing where I would love to find a way to get as many of us in one place as I could, and find a way to sell the organ for the studio time and actually get us published, because we have a bunch of great tunes, and then one of the founding members moved out of Albuquerque, and we all sort of none of us felt like it would be right to do it without any of the founding members there. So the band ended, and then I was unfortunately medically interesting for several years. I underwent a number of surgeries, and I was just kind of down, which didn't work out terribly because it meant that I was home during my son's early years. So, as my dad was a sales rep through most of my childhood, so I had the opposite experience.
Yeah, I got another comment on here. It says, Red Roof Pub. 1999, $35 and a pitcher of beer. I think there's a story there.
Red Roof Pub.
1991. Who can remember back that far?
1991. What was I doing? That's been a minute.
Hi, Red Ross. Hey, hi, Randy. Roddy Landard from Red Rosters is also on our feed here. While you're thinking,
I honestly can't remember. Which might say what may or may not else have happened that evening. I honestly don't recall for sure. There was 1990. I was in and out of a lot of projects around then. That's what's and unfortunately it's been a minute, and I've, not being a terribly graceful person, I've bounced my head off of several objects since then.
well, I
I'm
don't know.
embarrassed to say he's got me. I don't.
And a pitcher of beer is what you got paid. That's probably not memorable.
That's true. Now, there have been many times we ended up playing for the drink tickets or whatnot.
Oh, here he added a new comment. He said, "Red Roof not related to Chris, a testament to what we would play for at the time."
Okay, very good. Yeah, in Albuquerque,
spinning.
I was gonna say in Albuquerque they were really, because New Mexico is poor as hell. Usually like 48th in income. It wasn't even a pitcher. You got drink tickets.
Oh my gosh.
And they were probably left over from whatever charity raffle the bar had done. Oh, we still got a wheel of those things? Okay, give them to the band members so they can't have more than 2 beers. But that was Albuquerque, because I was in Albuquerque between the ages of 7 and 41.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I moved here in 2012. And funny thing, I have actually, because I had so many jobs where I had to take drug tests, I actually am not a practitioner of the 420. And my musician friends in Albuquerque saw me move here the year it got legalized. Yeah. Matter of fact, I got here practically as the election happened that it got legalized in. Yeah. And I was called some things. They invented new profanity.
Oh, no.
You don't even appreciate it, you. Bleep, 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 bleep. It was pretty, some of it was very imaginative. I was impressed.
I got a comment here from Rodster, Rodney Landard. He says, "I love you, Joy." Well, I love you too, but I'm already spoken for. Last night, I asked Lynn to marry me after he played violin for me. I'm gonna live that down if I keep it up on my. So, what were you doing during COVID? How did that impact your music, and where were you? Are you in New Mexico, or are you in Washington?
No, I was here. I was here. I'd been here about 8 years. My brother, my son, and I all moved here in 2012. And when COVID hit, I was working in Seattle at a truck parts place during the day, and I was in a band called Tap Shackled. We were gigging out some. That was a fairly. I'm trying to get that. We're trying to get that band going again. That was one of those bands that sort of existed around the fact that everybody had lives, and so we were pretty understanding about that. So we usually ended up gigging only once or so a month. But when COVID hit, I was one of the people, and a whole lot of people I'll bet, including me, were at the same place at the same time, which was at the Draft Choice that last Saturday before everything locked down. because there was it was like Apocalyptica or something, was sort of there was one band that was put together. Lynn and Jeff both ended up playing that night. I ended up playing with them for a couple of songs right at the end of the night. But half the musician community was stuffed into that bar because we knew. We knew. We did the talk out there was practically martial law. We were expecting to see armored personnel carriers in the streets, and
Oh no.
but we knew that this might be the last performance for who knew how long.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of, hey, everybody, we might be about to get sick, so let's all go into the same bar and be really close together.
Exactly.
And that's all because musicians and artistic people are emotional anyway. Let's all hug a lot harder and shake hands a lot heavier and drape our arms over each other more. And yeah. About
I get it.
number of us got sick. I was one of them. Matter of fact, a drummer buddy of mine who was in the audience, remember that was on a Saturday. A drummer buddy of mine goes on Facebook that Monday and says, "I'm symptomatic as hell.
Yeah.
I've got all of it. I've got the fever. I've got the dry cough. I've got everything. I'm going to the doctor." And I was around all of you.
Oh no.
I'm not saying I brought it in, but I'm saying I brought it out. So everybody just be aware. And then I get like 2 different people the next day say, "Hey, you know that other guitarist that was next to you on stage?" Because it was a guy I didn't know. They just had a couple guests pop up for like the last 6 or 8 songs. And I was happy to be one of them, and I actually didn't know that the guitarist, but said, "Yeah, I forgot his name. He is at urgent care this morning." That was Tuesday. I was Wednesday, and I was. They ran my tests. They called me that Saturday morning and told me that I was positive, and I'm just like, yeah, hospitals always call you at 7:30 in the morning on a Saturday with good news. Yeah. The biggest thing I remember from that is a real sweet dude, a friend of mine named Dave back east, and like the nicest guy on earth. He's like the offset of me because I can be I have a lot of gallows humor and I can be pretty cynical, and he's just super nice guy. And he immediately, one of the first things he tells me is, "Dude, I'll never forget you." And I'm just like, "I haven't decided I'm dying, Dave." So could we not skip that step, if that would be all right? But yeah, I was down pretty hard for 2 weeks, which was also the amount of time I was down with Moderna shot 1, ironically, later. So, but I was like everybody else, I was trying to find anything to do. And then actually we found a loophole, or I should say Sandra's other band.
Yeah. Sandra Lopez.
Found a loophole out the lake by Belfair, and she and Trish had a thing going. I guess they were Sandra's other band at that point. I lost track because the 2 of them have more projects at a time than I can follow. But I'd met Trish at like one of the last jams at the Red Dog before everything closed. I literally met her one time. She texts me at work and says on a Thursday afternoon and says, "Hi, it's like this. We actually have a gig." This was like August, in 2020. None of us have played for months. We're all stir crazy. We're all losing our minds.
Yeah.
We actually have a gig playing on a boat over by Belfair And our guitarist, his knee, I can't remember, they're saying his knees or his ankles couldn't handle being on a boat.
Ah.
Are you available? And I'm just like, 48 hours notice. Oh, good. All the other musicians out there know what follows, which is the frantic texting of song lists. Do you know these? 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 And we put together most of it. And long and short, I got out there. And for the next 4 weekends, there were different versions of Sandra's other band. I was Sandra was in it all 4 times. I was in it all 4 times. Trish, I think, was in it all 4 times. But we had 2 or 3 drummers doing that. Sometimes there was another guitarist. Sometimes there wasn't. Sometimes there was another singer or 2. Whatever.
But you made it work.
And we had 1 rehearsal somewhere after the first gig. So it was like, yeah. So we actually wedged in a few shows during that first year of COVID, and that was good. And other than that, I was trying to set up collaborative recordings with people just to do something.
Right.
But what I mostly found out was that I apparently suck at meeting people to do collaborative recordings with, because I could meet people and they'd start talking about it, and then we'd start describing what we wanted to do, and then it was like squirrel. And they'd lose the train or I'd lose the train, and then things failed to happen at a breakneck pace.
We have 2 other people here, Chris. Hey, that one, can I call you Chris instead of Christopher? They said hi, Chris, and the other one said hey, and we don't know who you are, so if you put your name on, we'll give you a proper hello back. So along during during COVID, what happened to your music? Did you record anything? Did you cut any CDs, or where are you with your future now coming up? What's happening going forward?
That's a really good question. I wish I had a good answer for it.
Well,
the bit I have been trying to find other original music musicians without much success for a while. In that I guess I'm trying to find that impossible thing. I mean, I'm in an apartment dweller, and at the moment I'm in a recently replaced apartment dweller after there was a fire at my building. Yeah. You had to hear about that. So I can't really host anything, but I'm hoping to find something where I can sit down with a rhythm section and I love to let music kind of happen organically as much as possible. I mean, I have riffs and I have hard drives full of half developed songs and God knows how many lyrics and everything else. But I really hate working alone. I'm not inspired working alone. I love bouncing stuff off of others, and I love particularly playing with a rhythm section, because I don't know. It's like everything changes in my playing. I guess it's because I don't have to do my own timekeeping anymore, and I can just relax. Okay, that they're doing that. They're creating this foundation that we're all building on, and I don't have to lay down all the big pieces anymore, as well as the melody or the harmony or whatever. I can just think through the guitar parts of it now.
Right.
Whereas when I try to write stuff by myself, I'm trying to write everything all at once.
Yeah.
And
I've
I
heard that
usually just
before. Yeah.
I usually just make myself mad. I can write lyrics much more easily than I can write music by myself. But I have, like I said, I've got so many files and drives and stuff of riffs and melodies and lines and everything else, and I just am trying to find the right people to develop them.
So
So,
when you were out on the circuit playing with bands and so forth, what was a what was a time when you had an experience, or were there many, that let you know that you were headed in the right direction and doing this thing with the guitar and rock?
oh wow, pretty much the first time somebody clapped, I was
Ah,
sold.
you're,
But honestly, it
yeah.
didn't take much. But there have been a lot of, I guess, reinforcing moments. The first one is hard to pin down just because I was having so much fun. I was just even just at the first couple of gigs when we said, hey, that's it, thank you, good night, and anybody screamed one more.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I get to do more of this? Best day ever. And it was everything but one kind of powerful moment, silly as it was. I was playing. This was back in Albuquerque, and I was playing with a band called Even Keel. Again, with some great friends and some great musicians during the like 2003, 2007 thereabouts. And we were doing War Pigs, I think it was, at this biker rally.
Ah,
And it was a big biker thing, and it was and we doubled the fire code of this building we were in, and it was just somebody just like rented a warehouse for it, and we were stuffed. The walls were practically bursting, and it was gloriously almost completely out of control. And I was doing guitar and vocals. Actually, no, I wasn't. It wasn't even Keel. Excuse me, but Full Tilt. Just making sure I have it right. Yeah, I was in Full Tilt at the time. Even Keel just ended, but and we get through the intro, and I do the.
oops.
And being me, I laid down the first line. Generals gathered in their masses, and I went, "Family, sing along, go!" And the whole room, just like witches. And I swear to God, just the power of them singing almost knocked me back a foot. And it was as responsive a crowd as I'd ever had. And like I said, I'm usually just playing guitar. I typically sing like 2 songs a set to let the real singer rest a little bit. That's my job. Is I can let the real lead vocalist who actually has range give their pipes a minute of repose, and I'll fill it in for a minute, and then they can get back and get back to work. But this was huge because, like I said, it was the building was absolutely stuffed, and they were singing it so loud. I understood a little about when the crowd's louder than the PA and all of that, and the energy couldn't have been more absolutely reciprocal, and it was really impossibly great. And I remember just standing up there going, we have no security here. Everybody here is completely overamped right now. And if something went wrong, I had this thought, there's the betraying little voice in the back of your head that loves to ruin a good time. And it's like, if something goes wrong, it's going all the way wrong. But for the life of me, I couldn't imagine it happening. And it was just like,
It's
It's not going to happen. We're great. Life is
Martin, somebody
magnificent.
is saying, please leave us your name so Chris knows who you are. Okay. Okay, so moving on from that, what was the worst time you've ever had?
Oh, there have been some bad ones.
Yeah.
There was, well, keeping it specific, I, due to the things with my apartment and my insurance company right now, I'm very angry very recently, but one of the worst ones ever was I was playing this pathetic little place called the Pony Bar in Albuquerque, and it wasn't even its own bar. It was a sectioned off portion of what had been a topless bar
Oh,
that had closed, and it was basically a stage and enough of a bar that they could have, about a half dozen Coleman coolers and a cash register and like 10 tables. And it was in a not great part of town, but one of those cases where you take a gig because you know somebody. But a band that opened for Void Cathedral on one particular night managed to upend his beer on the stage. We'd done the thing where they set up kind of in front of our gear, so they could just peel their gear away real fast, and we could get started without a huge breakdown time. And he managed to upend an entire tall boy into the $500-600 big floor effect thing I had literally bought a month earlier.
No.
And they were packing their gear out, and I didn't understand right away, but I saw them tell, I think it was their singer, if I recall, just one of them say, "No, man, just go." And we're like, yeah, he had somewhere to be, whatever. And we actually are kind of helping them get their gear out of the way, and so we can get ours totally set up and get ready to go. And that's when I noticed, literally beer flowing out of the cracks in the casing of, something I didn't have anything like the money to replace.
Oh, Lord.
And it was like the bitchin' new Digitech unit of that year. And I want to say it was actually my friend Dave again, who is like tapping me on the shoulder going, "Dude, it was their singer guy, the guy who just left. He got kicked over his beer, and he totally knew he did it, and that's why he's." And I didn't even let him finish the sentence. And then you go to a mad thing of me trying to outrun a Camaro across a gravel parking lot. I did not win. And but came back, and for what it was worth, I got a life lesson that night, in that I'd gotten I'd had so much fun playing with my new digital toy that I'd forgotten I had a pretty good amp. I had one of the Marshall JCM 800s people pay real money for nowadays, and just having to do all of my dynamics, just playing through my amp and volume controls on my guitars, and with pick hand dynamics instead of depending on delays and choruses and flangers and everything, it was really useful, and I didn't actually replace that thing for a long time. Even when I found the money a little sooner than I was expecting to, and I didn't rush to replace it.
Yeah. We got that comment. Hi, Christopher. This is from Electric Dave.
Oh, Dave, dude.
Hi, Dave.
We love the Dave. We have to love the Dave.
Yeah, he's quite the guy. So I have only a few more minutes. 5 to
Sorry
be
about it.
exact. I want to know where you're going to be, or how we can get a hold of you, or if you have a website, or what band you're playing. What's going on?
Well, at the moment, I'm not doing. I don't have a whole lot of things dropping right now, simply because of a couple of recent complications in
Yeah.
my boring life.
Yeah.
But also because I said my band Tap Shackled is we are hopefully bringing a new rhythm section in. We lost our last one some months ago, and just there wasn't a whole lot going on. Everybody had lives that were demanding their attention. Those selfish lives, and
Yeah.
that's how it feels. And but we've been talking through some. We've been talking to some guys. We had one kind of audition night that went really well. So I'm hoping that'll be going soon. I'm always one of the alternates for the Iron Stallion band. As
Yeah.
I've played with Jay
Jay
and them
Nichols. Yeah.
on many occasions. That's actually uh, the last show I played was with them, and I'm hoping beyond hope to find the people I'm recording with soon. But I'm on. I have stuff under CA Martin on SoundClick and on.
I wish I would have known that, because I was looking for music to put on.
Yeah, I forgot. I sent you video stuff. I didn't send you links. Reverb Nation
Oh,
uh,
shoot.
and SoundClick, but under CA Martin, because one problem with having a name of Christopher Martin is
Yeah.
there's this band with this singer. I'm not going to give them any free publicity, but as a result of them actually being a pretty huge band in the mopey shoegazer world, it has allowed me to make some probably pretty inappropriate Gwyneth Paltrow jokes, but yeah, I need to switch that. I need to switch that up to Dakota Johnson jokes now, I guess. But yeah, given that he's as prominent as he is, I've been my stuff online, particularly like at Reverb Nation and whatnot, is particularly under CA Martin.
Okay, that's good to know.
And
And
when I
finally,
have new stuff, it drops there.
the last question is, where do you
Right.
see yourself between now and 5 years from now?
Holding up that silly guitar I sent you all the pictures of. Honestly,
Looks like a Willie Nelson guitar, actually.
it's the truth. Actually, that guitar's right behind me right now. But the I play because I have to. I mean, I've thought about 100 times. Oh, when my son was still young and kids seem to cost $1 billion a minute, and I should quit and sell my gear and become a boring adult and go to dental school or something, or I should, holding on to this gear is selfish. Every parent musician has that thought at least one time. That it's just childishness and selfishness that I'm holding on to all this gear that I could be turning into a beginning of a college education for whatever. I had all those thoughts, and I can't. My own family and friends pretty much tackle me every time I start one syllable down that road.
Good.
So 5 years from now, barring hopefully nothing tragic happens, I will be recording, playing somewhere.
Good to hear. Good to hear.
Yeah, that's who I am.
One last comment. Somebody said on here, and I'm not sure if that's Electric Dave or not, Friday Night Red Dog.
Friday Night Red Dog. I'll look through my Facebook stuff, because I'm absolutely certain that that means that one of my friends is, or some of my friends have a show, and I have missed the notification. Well, it's only Monday though, so hopefully they only posted it today, and I don't have to feel guilty. But whoever, if I can, I'll be there because it's the closest bar to
Iron
me. And, yeah.
Stallion. You said Iron Stallion.
So if I can, I'll be there. And if you're asking me to sub, well, I'll make the usual questions. You know how to get a hold of me, Jay. But thank you very much for having me on here. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome, Christopher. And I hope that your luck changes because you can't keep doing this, right?
Now, 2023 has been a series of tests, to put it gently, but some of which are still going on. But I'm determined to go into 2024 with a leering grin and a middle finger over my shoulder the previous year, and have a better one next time around. So,
all right, you take care. It's great having you, and thank you everybody for listening today. And bye, Chris. I hope to see you live sometime. Maybe I can get out there on Friday night.
Well, we'll see what's going on. If not, and I hope to attend the nuptials with you and Lynn and Andrea.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Bye. Well, that's it for now. On October 2nd, I have Doug Rusk. He's not confirmed it yet, but I believe he's going to update us on what he's been doing lately. I saw him last night out at Duval, and he hosts Wednesday night in Snohomish, a place called Doc's Tap House. So you get a chance to go out there to jam, please do. In the meantime, you take care, and I will see you next week. Have a good rest of your week. Bye-bye.